The marble was cold beneath her bare feet, cold, hard and indifferent, like the law that would kill her. For 3 days, no food had passed her lips, no water had soothed her throat. The hunger was a dull ache, a distant drumbeat beneath the roaring terror in her heart. Her silk robes felt like a shroud, and the gold of her crown a crushing weight. This was it. The final moment of Hadassah, the Jewish orphan, before she walked toward her own death as Esther, the Queen of Persia. What is the true cost of a crown if not to be worn for the sake of your people? And what is the terror of a mortal king compared to the deafening silence of an unseen God? For 3 days she had pleaded, her voice a raw whisper in the perfumed emptiness of her chambers. No answer came, only the echo of Mordecai's words. For such a time as this was her time. A time for sacrifice, not of an animal on an altar, but of a queen in a throne room. Imagine standing at that precipice, behind you the faces of every Jewish man, woman and child in 127 provinces, their lives hanging by the thread of your courage. Before you, a golden scepter that could mean life, or a silent, dismissive gaze that would mean execution. The air in the palace of Susa, usually thick with the scent of myrrh and spiced wine, now smelled only of fear. The intricate Persian tapestries on the walls depicted hunts and victories of kings. But all she could see were images of slaughter, her people, her family. The fast was over. Now she had to walk. That walk began not with a step, but with a breath. A single, shuddering intake of air that was part prayer, part resignation. The 3 days of fasting had stripped away everything but the core of her fear and the sliver of hope she clung to. The world had shrunk to the sound of her own heartbeat, a frantic rhythm against the vast, echoing silence of the palace. As she moved through the corridors, servants and guards averted their eyes. They knew the law. No one, not even the queen, could approach the king unsummoned. To do so was to court death. They were not looking at a queen, they were looking at a ghost. Her mind was a battlefield. One voice, the voice of Hadassah the orphan, screamed at her to turn back. It showed her visions of a simple life, a life where her biggest worry was pleasing Mordecai, a life without the gilded cage she now inhabited. "You are not a warrior," it whispered. "You are a girl who was chosen for her beauty, nothing more. You will die for nothing." But another voice, deeper and quieter, held her steady. It was the voice that remembered the stories of her ancestors, of a God who parted seas and toppled walls. It was the voice that echoed Mordecai's desperate plea. "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape," he had told her, his face etched with a grief that had shattered her heart. "For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" His words were not a comfort. They were a burden of destiny. There was no escape. To remain silent was a betrayal not just of her people, but of the invisible thread of purpose that had led her from obscurity to this very moment. The dust from the city, carrying the scent of fear and the ashes of her people's fasting, seemed to cling to her skin. She felt the weight of their prayers, their collective hope, a fragile armor around her. She saw Haman in the courtyard, resplendent in his robes, laughing with another court official. The sight sent a spike of ice through her veins. He was the architect of this genocide, a man so consumed by his hatred for Mordecai that he would eradicate an entire race. He looked at her, and his smile tightened. He saw only the queen, the beautiful ornament of his king. He did not see the Jewish woman who was walking toward the throne room to destroy him. That was her only advantage, her invisibility, The sacrifice of her identity was now her only weapon. The guards at the entrance to the inner court stood impassive, their spears like a forest of steel. They made no move to stop her. The law would do their work for them. She paused, closed her eyes, and stepped across the threshold. The inner court was unnervingly quiet. All sound seemed to die at the marble entrance, absorbed by the immense tapestries and the sheer intimidating scale of the throne room. At the far end, upon a dais of ivory and gold, sat King Xerxes. He was not a man, he was an institution, the absolute center of the Persian universe, and his gaze, when it lifted and fell upon her, was not of love, but of cold surprise and irritation. The air crackled with tension. Every official, every guard held their breath. This was the moment. The law was clear. Her life was forfeit. Time slowed. She could feel the blood pounding in her ears. Her carefully constructed composure threatened to shatter. This was not the charming, powerful king she knew from the banquets and the bedchamber. This was Ahasuerus, the autocrat whose whim was law, whose displeasure was death. She saw his hand tighten on the arm of his throne. It was over. Then something shifted. It was a change so subtle, it was almost imperceptible. For weeks, the king had been plagued by restless nights, an inexplicable agitation that left him exhausted and irritable. The night before, unable to sleep, he had commanded the royal chronicles be read to him, a litany of tedious daily events. And there, buried in the records, was a note about a man named Mordecai who had uncovered an assassination plot, saving the king's life. A man who had never been rewarded. A Jew. That name was fresh in his mind. Now seeing the woman Mordecai had raised, his queen standing before him in sackcloth-thin desperation, a different thought pierced his anger. A flicker of curiosity, of connection. In a move that stunned the court, he extended the golden scepter. A collective gasp, soft as a breeze, filled the room. Life. He had granted her life. The strength returned to her legs, and she approached, touching the tip of the scepter as tradition demanded. But this was only the first victory. The war was yet to be won. Her invitation to a private banquet, for him and Haman alone, was a masterstroke of strategy. It stoked the king's curiosity and inflated Haman's ego to disastrous proportions. At that first banquet, she held her tongue. At the second, with Haman swollen with pride and the king mellowed with wine, she finally unleashed her truth. "If I have found favor in your sight, O king," she began, her voice trembling but clear, "let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish." The king's face darkened. Who is he? And where is he? Who would dare presume in his heart to do so? Esther raised a hand, her finger shaking as she pointed directly at the man seated beside them. "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The revelation detonated in the room. Haman's face went white with terror. The king, purple with a rage born of betrayal and the realization of his own foolishness, stormed out into the palace garden. It was in that moment that the festival of Purim was truly born, not in the subsequent decree of salvation, but in the explosive, righteous fury of a king who realized he had been tricked into ordering the murder of his own queen. The sacrifice was complete. Not just the risk of her life, but the sacrifice of her silence. And as she watched the guards seize a pleading, pathetic Haman, Esther felt the weight of the crown settle differently upon her head. It was no longer a cage, but a weapon she had finally learned how to wield. And she wondered for all of us what silent, unseen chronicles are waiting to be read in our own sleepless nights, holding the key to a deliverance we thought impossible, as recorded throughout the book of Esther.